Alright guys, back with another video, and this time we're going to be going over my updated Trunks Reboot Mono Blue Good Stuff deck. I played this deck at the previous regionals, and did pretty decent with it in the old format. Gamma was a pretty tough matchup, but that's gone now. Sin was also kind of a tough matchup, but that's also gone now. But those are gone, and SS4 was like one of your best matchups, but other than that, like, you have an ability to beat most decks in this upcoming format. Before we get into it, make sure you guys are smashing the like button, leaving comments below what you're going to see from set 21 updated as well. I'm working on Frieza Swap right now from the new set and other decks as well. I'm going to maybe try to touch Baby Aggro as well from the new set. And yeah, also check the link in the description for Airfare Gaming merch, like this playmat. Also, we have hoodies and stuff, so it's really nice. And yeah, let's get into it. So, leader is just the Reboot starter deck. If you would take damage on your opponent's turn, instead of it going to your hand, you can reveal it. Before you go to your hand, maybe hit a trigger, and depending on how your build is, or just avoid crit, which is really nice. You can awaken during the player's turn if you have 4 less life, your opponent has 4 less life, or a player has 3 or more Z energy, which is pretty crazy. And on attack, it looks top 5 and grabs a Saiyan or an Earthling, 4 costs or less. I wish that effect was a little less restrictive, but that would probably make it broken. So there's only 16 targets for that effect in the deck currently, but when you side deck, especially if best of 1 pre-side, you'll have way more targets. It's an untap 1, draw 1 leader when it awakens, and you can awaken like 8 life, depending on if you just hit those Z energies earlier. But also in the back, you have that same ability to reveal and prevent critical, which is really nice. Attack, draw a card, enter turn, restand 1 blue, mono blue energy. Also, pay 2, activate main, draw 1 card, and you bottom deck one of their opponent's battle cards. No restriction. And if you have this guy on board, he gains double strike and 10k for the turn, which is pretty crazy. But let's go ahead and get into the main profile. This is updated with post set 21 and promos. But feel free to leave comments below, giving me any type of changes you want to make. A lot of this stuff can be just like player's preference, which I hate to say that sometimes because it's usually something to optimize it, but this build currently is 54 cards, and I wanted to play way more cards. There's so many cards you would play, but that's why this deck's probably best in best of 1 pre-side, because you can side deck in the different Saiyans and Earthlings that you really want to see, depending on the matchup. But this is the new promo. I recommend playing this card, especially since it's just a 1-drop cantrip, and this deck loves 1-drop cantrips, especially early on, for Z energy and just getting your stuff rolling. And also, it is a counterattack, limit 1, play this card, and when it's played, you get to choose up one of your opponent's battle cards skills and remove it, negate it for the turn, and it also has the ability to bottom deck a combo card with 0 cost from your opponent's combo and put them bottom of the deck, yeah. And when it's played, it draws a card, obviously, like I said earlier, so it can just be played as a normal cantrip as well, and your leader can grab it, which is really nice. 3 copies of Pan Glimpse of Talent. This card's mainly there to be played off of your Piccolo, but you obviously can just 1-drop cantrip it early. It's also a barrier. 4 copies of the bottom deck draw 2 super combo, but you have to be a 4 less life, which is sometimes a struggle, but you have more ways to take life now. 4 copies of one of my favorite cards in the deck, Mortals Be Gone, Goku Black, 1-drop, draw a card, bottom deck something 4 or less. Pretty crazy card, and all it requires is you having 3 Z energy, which is basically something you do immediately if you can on turn 2. Then you have 1 copy of Baby Bitter Revenge on Saiyans. This card is probably going to be in the side deck, depending on the matchup, but you get the ability to remove this from game whenever you bottom deck one of your opponent's battle cards, or bottom deck a battle card in general, so your leader can trigger it. Then you get to remove a unison from the bottom deck a unison 2 cost or less, and it has no restriction on markers, which is pretty crazy. So leader effect, draw a card, bottom deck one of the cards. Battle cards, and then you remove this from game, pay 1, and bottom deck a unison, which is pretty crazy. Your main pivotal piece of the deck, Piccolo the Infiltrator. This is a mandatory 4 of. You can't search it, you just have to draw into it with your cantrips and stuff like that. Hopefully you see it in turn 2, because mainly because you play that Pan from your deck, and draw a card, obviously. Attack, combo this, and hopefully on the turn before you comboed a cantrip or a Unbreakable, and then you charge this, and Unbreakable was the previous turn, depending on your hand, and then you attack with your leader, look top 5, grab some, combo Piccolo, and then you have 3 Z energy, and you didn't really lose any advantage. You awaken, untap 1, draw 1, 8 life, which is pretty dang good. Also, just being able to pay 2 to get a barrier attacker is really nice as well. And to the 5 drops, you got 2 copies of the Champ promo, Super Saiyan Trunks, Emotional Blow. If you don't have this card, it's not that crazy necessary. There are other cards you can replace it with, or just not play it. But this card is a 1 drop. If you have something 3 costs, 30k power or an 8 cost on board, and you get to just play him for 1, and then when he attacks, he gets to bottom deck something enormous indestructible, which is pretty crazy. And he also has crit, which is really nice. Then you have 1 copy of Baby Golden Avenger. This deck specifically is playing to win in probably turn 5, if possible. But yeah, this is there for floodgates, obviously. And also, you can also use it as a counterplay for 5, which is not unheard of. It happened to me when I was at the regionals in the 3v3 event, which was kind of crazy. Then you have 4 copies of Oob with the new SR, but this is the SPR version, so beautiful. But yeah, this card is pretty insane. If your leader has 2 or more energy, you can play this card for 1, and it can make your opponent Z energy one of their use Z energy one of their battle cards, and then it's also a 20k attacker. So it's a 1 drop removal for anything, and then you can place this card upon your opponent's leader at the end of the turn. Oh, that makes you do so, and then you get it back at the start of your main phase. That only happens if it's during the turn it's played, so it doesn't just do it every turn. So it also, whenever it's under a leader, it reduces the power of that opponent's leader by 5k, which is pretty crazy. And 3 copies of the new Oob. Now this Oob is pretty crazy. In my opinion, it's a 2 cost almost always, because it gets reduced by Z energy, and the card is just it's basically a 2 drop draw card, 30k. Remove up to 3 battle cards. It will place them in their opponent's Z energy, which is pretty crazy. And it's a double striker of 30k. And then that's a 30k power guy, so it allows you to have the ability to play this for 1 right behind it. But yeah, it's pretty strong. And yeah, and there's other cards you can that Trunks gets cheaper for, like this one. This is the new Baby SR, but SPR version. You get to play this card for 2 if you have a Vegeta in drop, which Vegeta GT specifically. So you tuck it under there. So you pay for 2 drop 35k attacker. So these guys are limit 1. So I wanted to play a 4th copy of that type of effect. So yeah, you can't play him if you don't have a Vegeta in drop. So keep that in mind. You have to play around it. 3 copies of the SGR. Gohan Power Reclaimed. This is a great effect for pay 3 to play it for triple attack for 20k on your opponent's turn. Bottom deck. You can your turn or your opponent's turn. You can bottom deck one of your opponent's battle cards. Period. There's no restriction outside of you can't choose something with Barry, obviously, but it also has the ability when you combo with it, pay 1 at the end of battle, Z energy, and you get to remove something 5 or less. Put it on the bottom of the deck, which is really strong. And then 3 copies of your Floodgate. You could potentially add a 4th one if you really want to, depending on your preferences. This guy's live on turn 2, but you don't really need, well, if you do pick a little Infiltrator, but it's only live when you really need it to be, because you're going to be 8 live really early most times. Also, don't forget, the Oob allows you to take a life if you want to as well. So that's the effect of something that lets you take life. To your defensive options outside of the battle cards, you got 4 Senzu Bean, 4 Dimension Magic, 3 Ultra Instants Kamehameha. I was playing 4 copies. May go back to 4 copies over 1 copy of one of these. It's really tough depending on the format. So depending on what I think I'm going to play against, this might go up to 4. Then you got 3 copies of Unbreakable. This card is crazy in this deck, and it could be just sell if you want it to be. But any combo draw card, really nice in this deck, especially just for Z energy purposes. Then 1 copy of Boo, because this card's limited. This card is just a god card. So, and then you have your WinCon, is the United Divinity. You can play Beast Han, but the way this deck is currently constructed, I think this may be the better SCR. Also, you can play Cooler SCR. I played that at Regionals, the Golden Cooler. That card's just insane, and with the Oob card, so I may put that back in as just an auto win button, and also it just brings your opponent down. But if there's a lot of Frieza decks, the deflect is really important, so I'm not exactly sure if cards without deflect are great in this upcoming format with as much Frieza Cold Bloodlust is going around. Then the overall of choice for this deck specifically, I'm playing Mira, Assault from the Skies. I just love this card, and the ability to get my energy back and to draw a card, so I don't lose advantage, is really strong. But this could just be your overrealm of choice, so whichever one you prefer. To the Z deck, I'm playing 2 copies of the Z battle card SSB Vegito, Godly Spirit. This is the one that's made for the deck. You get to remove something in your turn, bottom deck something, and this guy's blocker, barrier, triple strike. And your opponent has to bottom deck a card from their hand. This guy's... there's so much barrier removal in almost every color now, so this guy's not that safe to play sometimes, so be careful. 1 copy of Android 21. Tuck this under for a 4-drop triple striker, really strong. Or it can tuck it up, tuck other stuff under it, gain barrier, and you can tuck this under, gain crit. It's really cool. But yeah, this and also ramp at the end of the turn, which is really nice for this deck. Just getting more energy strong. Then you got 1 copy of Beerus, 1 copy of Cell. These are both good removal cards, mass removal, and the ability to get rid of barrier cards and cards that are higher cost. Really nice. I'm not sure how important this will be with the amount of removal from set 21, but still good to have. Then you have 1 copy of Take a Life Vegeta and 1 copy of Stronger Together. This is for, like, you know, mitigating the hand size difference if they have a lot of cards. But yeah, make sure you're smashing that like button, and we'll go over a few more cards you can play just for options. Like I said, you can play Borgos if you want. You can take out the Goku and Oob card. There's not that many targets for cantrip, and the removal to like put a card back in the hand is not that crazy unless you're hitting a token or a Z battle card because they get removed from game. 1 copy of Desperate Measures is most definitely going to my side, or maybe 2 depending on the matchup. Beerus, the Destroys card is really strong as well. Depending on how the format goes, these will be on my side or main. Just gotta be really careful about what you're picking. Token negates, probably depending on the matchup, could be useful. And you also have to take into account, you can decide Turn of the Tide and Kotsukais, and Black Smokes for more removal. Anti-Golden Frieza with the Dark Dragon Bullet. And then if you don't play the Divinity SCR, you most definitely play this card on your side if you don't. Because it stops yourself. You don't want that. And then, obviously, Borgos for other decks that untap. Decisive Strike, that anti-Floodgate. Like, it's kind of like Desperate Measure, but a little better. The 4th copy of Defending Friends. And, yeah, that's pretty... And then, obviously, Jiren to stop your opponent from dropping the Turn of the Tide, which is maybe relevant. But yeah, thank you guys for watching the video once again, and make sure you're checking in for the new videos. Deuces.